Thank you so much once again, Professor. It's such a great pleasure and a true honor, above all, to be here with you. On behalf of this group, we are very, very grateful for the huge generosity, and this is the right word, of sharing your precious time with us. And we are very happy to be here with you. We know that you received many invitations. You are, as far as I could understand, in Brazil for a few days, and you managed to find this kind of time slot for us here. So this only makes us even more grateful for the opportunity of having this conversation. And as I was mentioning, Professor, this is a group composed by business and thought leaders of many of Brazil's leading companies and institutions. And under this leadership program, we are debating critical issues every month, not only about the professional life, but also about life from a broader perspective. And in this program, Professor, we believe in the value of genuine education, which is the result of reflection and quality dialogue in order to gain wisdom, rather than this traditional approach to schooling that focuses only on the transfer of information. So as part of this process of genuine education, we have these special sessions with leading thinkers like yourself, who are, as I mentioned, our guides to think better about the subjects and, of course, to act accordingly. So just for the sake of starting this event in a more formal way, I would like to highlight to all participants that Professor Thakur Powdyel is an educator by choice, by conviction, and by passion. As the country's first democratically elected Minister of Education, he moved Bhutan towards fulfilling the Millenium Development Goals and the country's constitutional mandate for education. His major interests include integrity, national self-respect, moral literacy, and gross national happiness, a theme that Bhutan has pioneered. And it's a great contribution for humanity. Professor Powdyel's vision of holistic education, as expressed in his book, My Green School, has been translated into several languages. And Professor Powdyel, just to conclude, is a recipient of many awards, such as the Guzi Peace Prize, the Global Education Award, and the Distinguished Service Award for his pioneer work in education, as well as the Coronation Gold Medal 2008, and the Institutional Award, the Honor of Drug Tuxi 2012. So, Professor, without further ado, I'd like to welcome you very much once again. This is your house. I don't know if you want to say a few words before I start asking some questions. I have kind of listed some questions here for you, and also, of course, to open for the other participants. So, but perhaps we can start with some words from yourself. Thank you so much.
Bon dia,
Bom
and
dia.
Kuzizangpola, as we say it in Bhutan. And good morning, Professor Alexander and Professor Angela, and all the esteemed participants in this conversation. I'm so deeply humbled, in fact, overwhelmed and rather nervous, sitting here in front of this august gathering of thought leaders, individuals who have made a difference in your own lives and in the world and the society around you. I have traveled across the seven seas to the heart of Latin America, the largest country in South America, Brazil, fifth largest in the world, home to so many great souls that have moved humanity and also contributed to the development of your great country, Brazil. I have traveled here to learn and to listen, and I have done that in great measure in the 4 visits that I've made so far to your beautiful country, beginning in 2020 in Curitiba. I understand that you have initiated a mission. This is a mission that the world needs, a mission to make a positive difference to the way things are. This is a time filled with opportunities and hope, but at the same time, it is also a time that is deeply, deeply distressed, agonized, and in great pain. Humanity does not deserve to be carrying so much of pain and misery. That is the reason why individuals like you have come forward to relieve that pain with one individual at a time, to wipe the tear off the eyes of one person at a time. And each of those drops making the mighty ocean of humanity, and both inspired by hope as well as brought down by despair. I believe you have already done a tremendous amount of work, given up important and secure jobs in your different organizations because you listen to a call, your heart, your soul listen to a call. I'm a great fan of the North Star. The North Star. As we all know, sailors, mariners, and navigators long ago, before precision equipment like the ones that we have today were invented, looked at the North Star. The sea was so vast and the shore was so far. Lost in the middle of the wide open sea, the sailors had no idea of where the safety of the port was. But they looked at the North Star because the North Star was always there. They took it as a point of reference, and following the direction given by the North Star, they set sail towards the safety of the shore. In the 21st century, everything is available on the mobile phone. Precise locations in the sea, on land, in the sky, and everywhere in between. So people may not have either the time or the inclination to look at the night sky and identify the North Star. But I believe that today, in the 21st century, more than ever before, we need the guidance of a North Star. We need a North Star to guide our own lives, a North Star to guide our institutions, as well as a North Star to guide our societies in our nations. Without the North Star, without a vision, without a sense of direction, we would not know where we are going to be 10 years down the line, where our societies and nations will be 20 years, 50 years down the lines. That is why today, more so than ever before, we need the North Star for our own lives, for the life of our societies, and for the life of our nations. And it is in this light that I see the great value of your work. You are identifying and showing the North Star to a world, to a society that is fraught with a lot of anxiety, a lot of despair, and a lot of despondency. What you do is so very commendable. And I would like to pay my tributes to all of you, the founders of this very select group of thought leaders and doers who are making a positive difference. It doesn't matter where you do it in the world. I believe in the oneness of humanity as we all do. And take a clue from the great American poet Carl Sandburg, who says, "There's only one man in the world. His name is all men. There's only one woman in the world. Her name is all women. There's only one child in the world, and the child's name is all children." So I come to you as a member of the human family to which we all belong. And thank you so much for opening your doors and opening your hearts to this humble educator from Bhutan. Also in a journey, on a journey to look for hope for humanity, on a journey to look for meaning and purpose in life, not only as individuals, but also as members of the global community. So, once again, to you, Professor and Professor Angela, and all of you who are here, my gracious hosts, I would like to say thank you.
Wow.
Thank
We
you so
thank you
much,
very much,
Professor Powdyel.
Professor Powdyel, for your generous and encouraging words. And please let me also thank here the person who made this possible, which is Fernando Brancacho, who is here with us, and his beautiful work at Fair Job. Thank you so much, Fernando. And also our member of our group, Giovanna Donella, who also made this kind of bridge with Fernando and also made this possible. So we'd like to deeply thank you, Fernando and Giovanna, who is not yet here, for your, I would say, opening for us. And so we could bring Professor Powdyel honorable presence here to us. So, Professor, and Fernando, if you would like to say a few words, please feel free. Please, you are at your home as well. And and so, Professor, let me start our conversation, of course, with the big contribution of Bhutan, which is the gross national happiness. So Bhutan is renowned globally for pioneering this concept of gross national happiness. So could you please share a little bit the idea behind this wonderful initiative? And in particular, what is the role of education in fostering the G&H, and what lessons, let's say, Bhutan's initiative has for other nations seeking a more balanced measure of prosperity and of progress for us?
Do I begin, or is Dr. Fernando going to come in?
He's shy, Professor.
All
No,
right.
I,
Thank
I'd
you.
like to.
Fernando.
Today I'd like to hear Prof. Powdyel. Then in another opportunity I will talk. But today you are our host, our invited. Okay.
Thank you so much. You are a great host and a bridge builder. That's the reason I'm here. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So, going back to Professor Alexander's question about the vision of this holistic vision of gross national happiness, we owe it to the great King of Destiny, His Majesty Dugyalpo Jigme Singh Wangchuk, for envisioning this new, unique development path as opposed to the conventional, the beaten path of gross domestic product. His Majesty was very young when almost overnight he had to assume the responsibility of looking after the kingdom, the country, because our third king, who we lovingly call the father of modern Bhutan, passed away far, far away from home in Nairobi, Kenya. So the sun set on the firmament of Bhutan immediately, and a new light had to be born. And the new light was the fourth king, young when he became king. 16 going on 17. But even though he was very young in body, tender in age, yet he was and has been a great visionary. He looked around the world to see as to how governments looked at development. What was it that they called development? Why did they make the 5-year plans, the annual plans, short term, medium term, long term plans? What was the goal of those plans? And if it was development, how did they measure or assess development? At the end of the day, His Majesty concluded that all the governments around the world used a unidimensional, reductionistic, highly utilitarian, and limited yardstick called GDP. And the young king realized that GDP as a measure of development did not tell the whole story. It told only a part of the story. But we want the whole story, or as full a story as possible, because GDP has its obsession focused on the material world, the physical world, the world defined by commodities, material resources, things that the eyes can see. But life is much, much more than that. Life is not only material, it is not only physical. Life is so complex, it is so various, so subtle, so profound, and so beautiful. We have to have an understanding of these non economic, non material, non quantifiable dimensions of our life. This is where the real source of our being, of our meaning, of our worth, of our value lies. Otherwise, if we get carried away by material resources, consumption, production and consumption, possession of material resources, material goods and services, and believing in the mistaken notion that the more we have, the happier we are going to be. How flawed, how limited such a vision can be. Because, as we have seen around the world, it is not the most or the richest people who are the happiest. They may be, but not necessarily so. See, very often there is a dichotomy between the level of material goods and services and the level of happiness. They could be contradictory to each other. See, so if we rely only upon material development, physical progress, economic progress, we are going to get a very distorted, limited view of our own development. How do we flourish? How does a society flourish? How do human beings flourish? We do not have only one unidimensional material life. Our life is so various and multifaceted. So is the society. The life of the society is also complex because the society is made up of individuals. So is the nation. The nation is made up of individuals as well. That's why, as is the individual, so is the society. As is the society, so is the nation. As is the nation, so will the world be. See? Therefore, we have to look at other dimensions, other elements beyond the material, beyond the economic, beyond what is measurable to get a proper sense of what we mean by development or progress. So the young king thought that for Bhutan, we have to identify a different North Star, a new North Star. We have to look at or look for a, a different path that would be much more holistic and much more sustainable and much more equitable, much more just, much more fulfilling and worthwhile. Because at the end of the day, human beings in all continents, on all parallels and meridians, from coast to coast, from tropic to tropic, country to country, family to family, institution to institution, all of us at the end of the day have one fundamental longing, one basic yearning, and this is the yearning for happiness. So far in my life and in my travels, I'm yet to meet one individual who doesn't want to be happy. We all want to be happy. That is the basic universal denominator that characterizes us as the human of the species. It doesn't matter what language we speak, how we dress ourselves, what our rituals and rites, customs and costumes, art and architecture, what with all these diversities and differences, there's one fundamental common character in all of us. We all want to be happy. And the most important element that makes us happy is not necessarily economic element. It is not necessarily the material element. It is not necessarily the physical element. Of course, they're important. We need basic security. We need food. We need clothing. We need a shelter above our head. We need the basic minimum material economic security. But life is not limited to that. Life is beyond that. Life is more than that. Life is far more all embracing. It's so much more complex and so multi layered, so beautiful. How do we take into account these various, the wondrous, the magical quality of lives? Our social dimension, our cultural dimension. We are social beings. We love to live together. We need friendship. We need the sense of neighborliness. We can't live alone. See. We need we need the we need the blessings of love, blessings of love, blessings of friendship, blessings of trust, blessings of harmony, unity. We dream, we hope, we aspire, we think of the futures. So our inner life, the quality of our inner life, the quality of our non-economic life is so important to make the quality of our outer life. So what the eyes can see it's very ephemeral, very transitory. Nothing lasts. Everything flows. As the great Greek Heraclitus said, nothing is permanent. So what do we hold on to? What do we cultivate to give us more meaning, to give us more fulfillment and a sense of worth? Who are we? Where are we going? How do we fulfill the purpose of our lives? So our young king was asking himself, what ought to be the goal of development? What ought to be the role of the government? What ought to be the role of institutions and organizations? And how do we together channel our energies and our hopes so that collectively we can move in the direction pointed by the North Star, the desired directions. GDP is so exploitative, as we know. The mess that we see in the world today is thanks to the proliferation of the GDP ideal, the GDP model, the GDP impulse in human beings. More production. Look at the number of cars in the world. Do we need all these cars? Who needs all these cars? The number of buildings, the number of structures, the number of banks, institutions, the amount of money lying there. See, does the world need all these? For life to be fulfilling, for life to be beautiful, see, ultimately, our most profound needs, our most passionate desires are not fulfilled by material goods and services. We have to look for something that stills the tooth that nibbles at the soul, as the American poetess Emily Dickinson would say. We need something that quietens, that pacifies this, the tooth that nibbles at the soul. We have to go beyond GDP. So, gross national happiness as a development vision is much more holistic. It takes into account the need for equity, for, for fairness, for justice. We call it the pillar, the first pillar. Gross national happiness is founded on four pillars. There could be something like the enabling conditions. And the very first pillar deals with the need to bring about balanced and equitable socio-economic development. Because today, all around the world, one of the biggest sources of disappointment and unhappiness is inequity. Inequity. Imbalance in the distribution of resources. 1% of the people would be owning the lion's share of the resources of the country, of the societies. And the vast majority is left with the crumbs, the leftovers. How will there be happiness when there's such disparity? That's why the very first pillar of gross national happiness is the need to bring about balanced and equitable socio-economic development. The opportunities brought about by development, the resources of the country ought to be equitably shared amongst the members of the society, amongst the different parts of the country. Otherwise, some parts will be developing very fast because they have all the resources, and others will be lagging behind. Some sections of the society will be lagging behind, while others are multiplying their wealth. There'll be no equity, there'll be no justice, therefore, no happiness. That's why, very consciously, the government will have to make plans, arrangements to ensure that there's equity, there's justice, there's fairness. We're not talking about equality, but equity, fairness in the sharing of opportunities, sharing of resources, and opportunities to grow together, to develop together, and to be happy together or sad together. See, when there is this, when there is this opportunity, when there's this kind of balance and equity, then even if we go through problems, we have we're happy. Everybody's going through the same challenges, so we should understand. See, unlike a situation where there's so much disparity, and gross national happiness, unlike GDP, is deeply concerned about the integrity of Mother Nature, our planet Earth. As far as GDP is concerned, it doesn't matter where the resources come from. Exploit more, produce more, consume more. See, GDP doesn't bother about what is going to be left behind for future generations. As long as profit is made, as long as revenue comes, It doesn't matter where it comes from. Does it come from production of mass weapons of mass destruction? How much money, how many billion, millions or billions or trillions of dollars will be used up for the manufacture of one weapon of destruction? But because the production of that weapon is producing revenue, governments will be, in fact, happy to believe that the country is growing, economic progress is happening, see. Revenue is coming, see. So per capita income may be growing, see. The government's resources may be growing, see. But look at the ethics involved here, see. There is not development with values, see. There is not development, there is just affairs, see. So we have to take care of Mother Nature. Imagine Brazil without the rainforest, without the Amazon rainforest. I'm sure there will be some people who would be tempted to actually decimate the rainforest and bring about development. But 60% of the world's oxygen is supplied by your Brazilian Amazon rainforest. We have to preserve that. We have to secure that. Similarly, wherever there are opportunities for the greening of the earth, we need oxygen. We need a clear blue sky. We need clean water. We need pure air. We need healthy soils. If we take care of Mother Nature, our planet Earth will take care of us. If we take care of the air that we breathe, that air will take care of us. If we take care of the water that we drink, that water will nourish our body and provide a sense of good health. So, in gross national happiness, take into account the health of Mother Nature, our planet Earth, not as a resource, but as a gift, as a blessing, is so very important. Today, everywhere around the world, we are talking about global warming and climate change. There is so much of pollution. Some of the cities are becoming unlivable. Water is becoming undrinkable. Air is becoming unbreathable. And life is becoming unviable in many parts of the world. How do we go about solving this problem if we can? Are we happy with the status quo? Let it be, and we don't bother? Or can we as individuals, or can we together as a group mount a sincere, genuine, mindful effort to bring about some change wherever we are, whatever time we may be living in, one step at a time, one drop by drop, we make the mighty ocean. That's why it's so important. So for gross national happiness, the quality of our relationship between us, the human of the species, and planet Earth, Mother Nature, is so critical. Take care of Mother Nature, and Mother Nature will take care of us. It's so important for us. The third element or the pillar is our culture, our tradition, our received wisdom. Today, all around the world, cultures are becoming standard. They're getting flattened. Culture is a manifestation of who we are and what makes us who we are. The way we proclaim who we are is a function of culture. And how do we proclaim who we are? We proclaim verbally or non-verbally. We proclaim in many physical ways, the way we dress ourselves, the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we cook our food, the way we eat, the way we drink, the way we sing, we dance, the way we build our homes, sing, play our games, do our dances, cook our food, do our architecture, build our art, create our art. All these are the physical aspects of culture. And the Brazilian, and I'm so happy to hear that Brazil is home to something like 126 nationalities from around the world. What they bring here is beauty and variety and diversity, and together all these cultures make the Brazilian cultures. And that is, it may not have a direct GDP assessed revenue production or generation justification, but without culture, our songs, our dances, our sports, our games, imagine Brazil without sports, without Peles, without your great players, without your boxers. Imagine Brazil without art, without songs, without your beautiful gardens, without the beautiful way in which you serve your guests. I believe Brazilians say all the time, whenever they meet a new person, they don't ask, how do you do? Or how are you? They ask, you ask, have you eaten? Have you eaten? And Kim, where in the world would you have a culture which is so generous, so large hearted? These are so important. And culture is the way we are, see. How did we get to be the way we are, see? How do we show the way we are? How do we think? What do we dream about? What is success for us? What is our notion of right and wrong? What is our notion of good and bad? Truth and falsehood? What is our worldview? See? What is our outlook? All these together make us who we are. That is our culture. See? So culture is so very important. And it is important, since we're talking about education, it is important for succeeding generations, our children, our boys and girls, to learn about culture. Culture teaches us tolerance. Culture is civilization. Culture is perfection. Culture is humanization. Culture makes us who we are. Appreciation of diversity, celebration of who we are and who the others are. Together we grow. That is culture. And of course, we have governance. Governance is so important. Governance at all levels. Personal governance. How do I govern my lives? When you think of governance, we talk only of the large enterprise called the government of the countries. Government. But government or governance happens at all levels, beginning with the individual level. How do I govern my life? What values is my life based on? Do I practice what I preach? Is there a difference between my head and my speech? Between what I think and what I say? And what I say and what I do? See? What values, what principles, what philosophy, what convictions do I have? What is my worldview? See? What makes me who I am? See? How do I govern myself? And if I govern myself properly, I'll also be able to look after my family, see? The near and dear ones, my friends, my community, my society, my country. See? So governance begins with the person number one. See? As I am, so is my family. As I am, so is my institution. As I am, so is my nation. And as the nation is, so is the world. See? So governance begins there. And when it comes to institutions, organizations, corporations, businesses, how are they governed? Are they governed on the very practical, mechanical principle of efficiency? Efficiency is good; it's to be desired, but efficiency does not always produce equity. It doesn't always produce fairness or justice. So we have to look around, see, to see who is the who is the person in my company today who seems to be having some problems. The face is telling a different story from the normal story. What must be going on in the life of this person? What must be going on in the families, in the society? So an inclusive and understanding and a caring culture, a caring governance makes so much of difference. Governance can be the cause of a lot of joy and happiness and harmony in the country. Governance can bring about the best in people, see. Governance can make people flourish by creating the right conditions. But by the same token, bad governance can also diminish the range of people's lives. They can be reduced. They can become liabilities instead of becoming assets of the society and the countries. That's why governance is so very important. The four pillars of gross national happiness, bringing about balanced and equitable socio-economic development, conservation and taking care of the health and integrity of Mother Nature, our planet Earth, preservation and practice of culture, heritage, and received wisdoms, our roots. And the fourth one, the need to promote good governance at all levels. Governance is an act of faith. When people elect a government, they do it on trust, in good faith, that it will serve the larger cause of the society. It will serve the cause of people. It will cause the bigger cause of nation building, human flourishing. Governance is an act of faith. Governance is empowerment, especially in democracies. Governments will have to be mindful of the fact that they are elected on trust to uphold a bigger purpose, to serve a bigger goal, empower people, enable them to flourish, to bloom, and to blossom. Does governance in my institution, in my organization, in my club, at the organizational level, at the corporation level, at the national level, what are the principles on which governance is based? Actually, based on my own experience and my own hopes, I developed what I call the triangle of parliamentary integrity. But this triangle can be used at any level, in any situation, because we need integrity at all levels. Integrity at the individual level, at the family level, institutional organizational level, social level, national level. If there is integrity in the country, because the world is made up of nations, and if nations are run well on the principle of integrity, on the principle of fairness, on the principle of peace and justice and harmony, we will be able to build a world that is peaceful, is harmonious, and that is the way it ought to be. So the four pillars, unlike GDP that is unidimensional, GDP is founded only on one pillar, economic pillar. And a house built on one pillar is not very stable. That's why we see the problems of the world, inequities, fights, wars. Why should the world be like this? Is this the way human beings should be living our lives? Is this the world that that befits us, the human of the species? Are we fit to be in the world as humans? Are we fit to be enjoying all these blessings of Mother Nature? And is the world fit for human beings? Where has the rain, or where have the rains started beating us? Where are we going? So, gross national happiness as a development vision is actually the cultivation of a good society, a paradigm, a pathway, a framework, a vision for a good, well developed, well integrated, harmonious society within the boundaries set by Mother Nature. This is gross national happiness.
Wow. Well, Professor, It's wonderful. It's even difficult to say something now. I'd like to ask you, please, a question which is divided in two parts. And I also would like to welcome all of you, all friends here, to raise your hands to ask questions, those who want to make use of this very important moment for us. Just before Angela, my question, Professor.
Alex, I wanted to just to take a picture because some people are needing to
Okay,
go
to register, Professor, this
Yes.
special moment.
please. So I'll count until 3, okay? 1, 2, 3, go. Okay.
Let's see.
One, yeah. One again. Once again, please. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Go. Go ahead.
Sorry,
So,
on top of my screen, there's a ban,
mhm.
and that is blocking part of your faces. But maybe you are able to see the full face.
Yes,
Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
we can see your full face, Professor.
Oh, good. So I have to make sure that I'm full. Yes. Thank you.
Yes, you are.
So, Professor, my question is divided in two parts. The first one is that you mentioned the 4 pillars of the gross national happiness. Could you please give some examples of decisions that were made as a consequence of these pillars in Bhutan? So, for us to as a kind of an inspiration for us in these different kind of domains. And the second part of the question relates with education. I know you love, of course, education. It's your life. And you have spoken a lot. I have seen some of your interviews and lectures that you basically, as far as I could understand, you see education as much more than just academic learning. You see it as something essential for nurturing human potential. So how can we transform our current educational systems, which in my view are still based only in a kind of an assembly line to generate more people to produce just kind of economic outcomes? How can we transform these educational systems to an environment in which people cultivate wisdom, not only information, compassion, and ethical responsibility beyond mere academic achievement? So these two questions, please, Professor. And please raise your hands, those who want to ask questions to Professor.
So as the questions perhaps get framed and collected, I will make an attempt to respond to these very big questions. I'm a little nervous and frightened, but in Bhutan, when people hear about gross national happiness, especially those outside Bhutan who are more inspired by the conventional notion of measuring progress, gross national happiness sounds very philosophical, idealistic, too good to be true, maybe difficult to practice. However, in Bhutan, it is not only a vision, it is not only our North Star, it is a real governance tool. When a department of the government or a government department or a ministry makes its annual plan or 5-year plan and submits it to the planning commission, they have to make their plans compatible with the principles of gross national happiness. Is the plan supporting the first pillar, bringing about balanced and equitable socio-economic development? Is it helping our communities? The plan will have to be vetted against that pillar. Is it supporting our concern for conservation of nature, our environment? And if the plan is not compatible with our culture, the need to promote and preserve our culture, our tradition, if it does not support good governance, these plans, whether they're annual plans or 5-year plans, short term, medium term, or long term, they will not get state funding. So to get state funding, the departments and ministries would have to prepare their plans, keeping in mind the pillars, the 9 domains that you would have read about. We can't go into those now. Are they serving these different components of gross national happiness? And the Planning Commission will only allocate resources. Not only allocates resources, but also it monitors progress. Is the project or are the programs serving, meeting the purpose for which the budget was granted? And they are evaluated against key results areas. So what are the results? And what we do not leave it there. We have what is called national think tank. We call it the Center for Bhutan Studies and Gross National Happiness Research. This is our think tank. And this body carries out periodic surveys, maybe once in 2 years or 3 years. Sometimes it has taken longer. Okay. So, gross national happiness is a governance tool. So we use it in policy making, in formulation of plans, mobilization of resources, allocation of resources, and monitoring progress against key results areas. So that is the first part. The second part, as it relates to education, we believe that education is so critical. It is the bottom line, education. Bhutan actually realized, our kings realized from day one that education was going to be important in the transformation of the society, in the empowerment of our people. So education gets the highest percentage of budget together with health in the budget allocation by the government. And we believe that education ought to be able to do its part to match the vision of the country. If a country has a large vision, if it has a noble vision, if it has a North Star like gross national happiness, which is unlike GDP, the subsystems of that nation would have to do their part to understand, embrace, and advance that vision. And education in any country in the world is the most important subsystem of the country. Because in education, we have the most precious segment of the population, our children, our boys and girls, our youth, young men and women. These people are going to be our future leaders, our policymakers, our planners, our professionals, diplomats, our members of parliament, our ministers, secretaries, directors, the presidents. All these people come from our schools, our colleges, our universities. And a lot of resources are also invested in education. We build institutions like nobody's business. And in our institutions, in the society, if we look at our schools, colleges, and universities, learning training centers together have the largest number of the most highly qualified people, our teachers, our professors. researchers. Our institutions of learning have the largest number of educated, qualified people. We have the most precious segment of the population. And our parents want their children to be educated. That is the reason why we see purpose and value in education. If that is the case, what we do in our classrooms ought to have a bigger purpose. What we do on a daily basis in our institutions must be more meaningful, more fulfilling, more purposeful, and worthwhile. It should be powerful. Learning should be powerful. See, how do we make sense of learning? See, education ought to be able to do that. See, and in Bhutan, we made a humble effort in 2009 by infusing the ideas of gross national happiness into the overall operation of our education system. We call this program Educating for Gross National Happiness. So it was a nationwide program. See. Trained all our school leaders, deputy leaders, our teachers, prepared materials, and we also made arrangements to assess schools by using some of the principles of gross national happiness. And one of the strategies that we developed was nurturing green schools. Nurturing green schools as a means to an end. And the end was supposed to be, and still is, green Bhutan. And by the way, green is not only a color, green is a metaphor. Green is a metaphor for anything and everything that supports life. And by life, we mean all life. Human life, animal life, plant life, bird life, life in the sea, life on land, life in the sky, and life everywhere in between. So the infinite variety of life, life in its multiplicity, everywhere. If anything supports and sustains life, that is greens. So we can have a green school, we can have a green college or university, we can have a green home, we can have a green parliament, green economy, green judiciary, green diplomacy, green economies, green architecture, green cities like your Curitiba, and of course maybe many others. I don't want to single Curitiba out, yes, but I've been there, so I know it. However, we have to believe that education ought to have a bigger purpose. What is happening at the moment is good, but not good enough. We have to make education worthwhile. Education was once called the noble sector, the noble sector. No other sector of public endeavor has ever been called noble, see, but education was called the noble sector. I still believe, perhaps this is the last soldier standing, say, that education is the noble sector. It is meant to help young people, men and women, boys and girls, cultivate the nobility of their mind, cultivate the nobility of their heart, thereby helping them cultivate the nobility of their hands. So when the head and the heart and the hands are brought together on the principle of nobility, you can imagine how powerful, how effective, what a great blessing such a person will be to the society, to the nation, and to the world. That's what we are aiming to do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Powdyel. My question is about how to integrate and reconcile concepts that are at least at the first sight dual. For instance, we need to think or to have a vision for 15 years from now or 20 years from now. We have to have a purpose or a North Star. But we also need to get out of the screens and to be present and to be the whole here and now. So how to reconcile these two spaces, the here and now and the vision and the life in between?
Thank you, Professor, for this such a beautiful question. Yes, I feel we have to imagine our role in much the same way as an artist imagines his or her role. The artist, the poet, the writer, the novelist, somebody who makes music or sculpture, somebody who does the drawing. I believe that a creative artist, a visionary artist, begins by reflecting the world as in a mirror, taking the world as it is. We cannot wish away the world. It is real. This life is real. We cannot discard it. We cannot disown it. This belongs to us. This is ours. We live in this world. It is real. It is a jug. It is there in time and in space. So we cannot wish it away. But at the same time, having been blessed by whatever forces there are, as the human of the species, we have qualities and abilities that are not available to many other species. So as the human of the species, we can think, we can imagine, we can dream, we can wonder, we can imagine a better world. I think other lower order animals are not able to imagine a better world. Today I have this home. If it does not fulfill my deep desires, I can imagine and build a better home, a better school institution, a better community. So we have the vision, like an artist, of a better world, a more fulfilling world. Because the art, what art does, as I see it, is art takes the world, art begins by mirroring the world as it is, but it ends up by destroying that mirror and suggesting an alternative of a better world, an alternative world, a better world, a more fulfilling world. So, Professor, as difficult as this is, so much easier said than done. However, I think without that vision, there will be no incentive for us to work. Our day cannot be limited by 5 o'clock or at 5 o'clock or 9 o'clock. It has to go on. See. And the vision has to transcend the current view. See. I look at view and vision. We must have a view of the world, but vision must transcend that view. See. We must go beyond the present. Professor.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Powdyel.
Wonderful.
Patricia, please.
Yes, thank you so much for this. This is really inspiring and it elevates our spirits. But my question goes exactly towards that. We live in a world now that is so polarized, so where people don't discuss the meaning of the words or the concepts. People don't discuss values. So how can we actually have a vision if you don't even know what values are, guide our societies, and how to actually overcome the skepticism of people that just think that these things are, idealistic. We cannot get there, or we should be more pragmatic. That's another sentence that we hear a lot. We should be pragmatic. How can we actually overcome those thoughts or those reactions and actually have provoke thought, more critical thinking, more discussion on our values, so that we can actually try to discuss a possible vision?
Thank you, Professor, once again. I think it is so easy to throw up our hands in the air and say, we have reached a cul-de-sac. There's no more progress possible, and things are so difficult. I, as an individual, I'm such a tiny little actor, such a small microcosm, and the macrocosm is so large beyond my capacity to make any difference. However, I think my own worldview, my own belief is that with all the problems, with all the aches and the pains, the bitterness and disappointments, failures, regrets, and frustrations, losses, with all those, it is still a good world. It is still a good world. I think there are more kind people than there are unkind people. I think there are more good people than there are bad people or evil people. Of course, there are good is not as dramatic as evil. Evil is very dramatic. It shows up. It's visible because there is an exception. Good is the rule. Right is the rule. See, wrong is the exception. See, the 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 governing principle of Mother Nature is one of balance. There's great goodness in the world. That's why I think even in the most difficult circumstances, we still hope for a better future. We love our children. We care for their future. I think while there is so much of cynicism, the wars, they break your heart. Every single day, what you see on the television screen is not what this world is meant to be like. They're supposed to be a family, see. Human beings supposed to be the most highly evolved of all human beings, of all species. We are called Homo sapiens, thinking beings, rational beings. But the way we behave, the way we conduct ourselves, far from Homo sapiens. The way we kill each other, it breaks our hearts to see children killed so brutally, roasted by the fallout of human intentions. What human beings are doing to other human beings is something that cannot be even comprehended. However, I think there are so many good people. The better part of the world is still beautiful. It is still good. And with all its aches and pains, life is still beautiful. Life is still precious. We have to be on the side of the good. There's a choice. There's so much of a problem, so much of disappointment, so much of despair in the world. But there's also hope. There's also beauty. There's also joy. I remember an old Mother Goose rhyme. Mother Goose rhyme. It says, two men looked out of the prison bars. Two men looked out of the prison bars. One saw the mud, the other saw the stars. Same prison, same windows. They're looking out of the windows. Two men looked out of the prison bars. One saw the mud, the other saw the stars. So for me, as an educator, as a teacher, I feel I have to have stories of joy. stories of success, stories of fulfillment to share with young people, with their children, with boys and girls. Otherwise, if I have only bitterness to share, failure to share, the need to compete with each other to share, I feel it's so unfair to young people. I feel it's so unfair. They don't deserve to hear this. I feel as educators, we are called upon to make the world a better place, educate people, enlighten them, educate the society, the communities. So educators must step up. Our institutions must step up. We have to be on the side of faith and not on the side of cynicism, on the side of hope and not on the side of despair, on the side of beauty and not on the side of ugliness. And I think the mirror will be so much clearer.
Nice. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so much.
Professor. We're going to, it's a pity because I think that all of us here can hear you for all over the day, Professor, but we're starting to go into the end of our session. So I have two more questions here from Dr. Jamal and Giselia. And Professor, this program, the name of this program is Virtual Leadership Program. And the idea is that a virtuous leader looks at the half full glass and what we can build together. How can we collaborate to create something better? So it's exactly in the same kind of spirit of your beautiful words here. So thank you so much. Dr. Jamal, please.
First, Professor Powdyel, I am very happy to be with you as all of us. I think that people, not only in my country, but in the world, are deluded, deceived about what is happiness. However, they are deluded and deceived in their own happiness, in different ways of happiness. I think many of these kinds of happinesses are not good for the world. So how can we change the course? People don't like to change. It should be easier to change sad people, not happy people, even if their happiness is not a good happiness for the world. So how can we do it? As you said, to show them the good side, because they live and they, in a way, sometimes they think that they will never have nothing better that they have now, and so they feel happy. And their inspirations are bad inspirations. And how can we change it? How can we change happy people?
Yeah, thank you, Professor. Yes, for this, excellent question, difficult to respond to. It is said that it is easier to ride the horse in the direction it is going. It is easier to ride the horse in the direction in which it is going. The moment you try to turn it around, it becomes very violent. So far, the world has been going on in the direction of the GDP horse. It's so easy. Need more, have more, possess more. That is the order of the world. That's how we should live our lives. Most people are told, see. But at the end of the day, when people look into their soul, does that collection of material wealth give them true happiness, fulfillment, or does it become cause of their unhappiness? So that is why I think while it is so difficult to bring about a change, because people have different notions of happiness, concepts of happiness, and to have a common barometer to see happiness in a collective way may be a big challenge. However, I think we have to make a beginning somewhere. How can I make a small change in my own little universe? Do I need all the things that I have with me in my house? Do I need all the suits, all the shoes, all the ties, all the materials which are there around me? Or, and am I happier because they are there? See? Or am I worried that I may have to buy a new one, replace the old one, or sometimes they may be stolen, and I may not be keeping up with the Joneses, my neighbors? So, this kind of tension and stress that wealth brings about is not desirable. So, in my own way, what can I do? I believe in small little steps. I believe in beginning from the margins. It's difficult to begin from the centers. So, if we can make a difference from the margin, from the peripheries, from the corners, many of those corners doing well might be able to converge in the middle, and drop by drop, we may be able to make a change. Um, I was traveling in India once and happened to be in Maharashtra, and there's a place called Salunki Vihar, in which most of the retired army officers, senior army officers, live. It's a kind of colony. And I was a guest to one of the retired army generals. And in the evening, he took me for a walk. And along, as we were walking, I asked my host, General Ian Call, General, now you're retired, you must have a lot of time for yourself. And he said something very special. He said, every single day, I try to do one good thing, one positive act, one good thing every single day. And if on certain days I'm not able to do anything good, I take my car out of the garage, right to the main road, and look for people waiting to go home, waiting to go to the hospital, to the market, waiting for the bus or a vehicle. So I try to give a lift to at least one person if I'm not able to do anything that particular day. So I think that if we can make a difference in our own lives, in our surrounding, in our little world, I think that will be worth it. If we don't do anything at all because it is difficult, because other people are not doing, I think we are being unfair to ourselves. What is it that quenches our soul? What is it that fulfills our deep hunger, our thirst as a human beings? I think we have to cultivate those elements, cultivate those dimensions of our life that give us true meaning, true purpose, and fulfillment. And I think we'll see the world in a different light. I don't think it's a good answer, but it's all I could do, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor. And you mentioned that the change comes from the periphery. Just by coincidence, a couple of weeks ago, we had a conversation with Peter Senge, which is the systemic thinker, and he mentioned that Otto Scharmer, who is his friend, also used to say that our hope for change in the system comes from the periphery of the systems, with different with people that are different from the mainstream and are doing things differently. So just to complement here, and please hand over to Giselia for the last question of our session. Thank you, Giselia.
Thank you, Alexandre. Professor, I want to tell you that starting my week, listening to you, being here is such an honor. It makes me start with a new sense of duty, because sometimes we are so immersed in the gross domestic product that we cannot see happiness in many places. And as you told us, you came to Brazil more than once. So I would like you to share with us, what is your impression about happiness in Brazil? Have you seen any difference from the last time you came here to now? Have you had the opportunity to see people on the streets? And if you can give us a word of incentive. Of course, your answer to Jamal now is sort of a call to all of us, not to wait for things being done, but to do it ourselves. But if you could leave us with a word, I would love to hear it.
Thank you, Professor. This is my fourth visit to your beautiful country. And every time I come here, I see Brazilians so happy. So, yes. And I've not been long enough here to really see the change, but as a short time guest, I see that there is so much of cheer, so much of joy. I think maybe I do not see, or I haven't been able to get to see the other aspects, but when I see people meet people, there is no hesitation to grab others, to grab people, visitors, strangers. You just grab people, you hug them, and you're so close, you're so warm. And as I was saying earlier on, when you meet somebody, I believe you do not ask, how are you or how do you do? You ask, have you eaten? Have you eaten? And it's it's such a large country, home to 126 nationalities. But one thing we do not hear is that we do not hear about racial tension like we hear about other places. You live in peace. You live in harmony. You celebrate each other. You value each other. You uphold each other. I think this is so important. And it's a very green country. Very green country. Sao Paulo is different, especially central Sao Paulo. But I think it's a large country, green country. But by all means, keep the Amazons. And there are challenges. We should not be so naive to not to see the challenge. Every country has challenges, and such a large country like Brazil would have more challenges than smaller countries like mine. So there will be challenges, but there are so many good things here, and I think Brazil is one country that is so serious in cultivating, in building an environment of happiness. Brazil was the first country outside Bhutan to host a large International Conference on Gross National Happiness in Rio in 2006. And following that conference, I'm told the constitution of the parliament of your country, the Brazilian Federal Parliament, brought about a small change, small but significant change in the constitution to incorporate pursuit of happiness as a basic human goal. See, pursuit of happiness, felicidade. And I see wherever I have been, whether it's here or in Brasilia or in Curitiba. I was last June in Porto Alegre. The state has suffered devastating floods. It is just recovering, see. But people are so very kind and so welcoming again, see. So I have a very good feeling about Brazil. I feel so good when I meet people. You have been so warm and hospitable. But I think there are opportunities to do bigger things. Such a large country can do large things, bigger things. Not only for you have done so much. Look at the sports, education, environment. Some of the largest conferences happen here. The civilization, the culture. You have so many resources, priceless, precious resources in this country. How do we build those? So I think this country has a lot of opportunities to do even better. Countries should have their own North Star. I was talking about earlier. I think each country will have to identify its own North Star. Where does the country want to be 10 years down the line? 15, 20 years down the line? Where do we want to see our country? What is our North Star? Do we have a North Star? Do we believe in that North Star? I think that North Star will take us beyond the present as it ought to fulfill the potential, the promise of a great, prosperous, peaceful, and happy country. I wish all of you the very best in your pursuit of development and fulfillment in life. I'm so glad that I've been able to join this conversation and learned a lot from your questions. I would like to wish your group and your colleagues and your friends and fellow citizens in your country great happiness in the days to come. Obrigado.
Thank you
Professor.
so much, Professor Powdyel. Thank you so much. We are very, very grateful for your precious and generous time and your light above us is thrilling. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Yes,
your encouraging and inspiring words have touched all of us. And on behalf of this very nice group here, I'd like to really thank you for your generosity in finding a kind of a time slot. Once again, let us also thank Fernando for making this possible. And so, yes, I think we are really in a kind of the same journey towards a kind of better well-being for all of us, with cooperation, with understanding, with peace, with harmony. That's the word we want to see everywhere. So I think that sessions like this are sessions of mutual nourishment and reinforcement towards this great North Star, which is to have a reconciliation of ourselves with us, with our other humans, and with our planet Earth. So thank you so much once again, Professor. What a beautiful session.
We
Thank
all
you,
in it
Professor
together. Thank you
Powdyel.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye
very
bye.
much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for the
Bye-bye.
invitation.
And
Thank you.
Professor, we
Yeah.
intend to take a group to Bhutan at some
Yes.
point in time. So we're
Yes.
going to see you in Bhutan in the next few years.
2027. 2027.
If you want
Oh,
to see one place in the world, I believe is in Bhutan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you going to
They
receive us there,
practice.
Professor?
absolutely, with open arms.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much. We'll see each other. Thank you.
Sooner
Bye-bye.
the better.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.